So I came to the realization recently that my little art journal was pretty close to filling up, and so we're coming up here on the end of Inktober, and it looks like I have filled this little guy with lots and lots of drawings over the last few months. And so today I'm going to be adding an interesting little drawing. I think I just want to keep things a little simple. I'm just going to be drawing a circle and I'll be creating a pattern inside of it and just trying to see what happens in there. So let's get this started. Just as promised, we're going to start off here with just a circle, and I'm just going to be using my little circle tool here. And if any of you are interested in checking this out, I will provide the link to their website so that you can see this product, and they do have a few other products as well. This one's really interesting, so it just rotates here. I believe this one that is called the Magcon, and so it is just like this rotating little piece. It's really interesting. So let me show you how I use it. You just set it down, and all I'm going to do, and unfortunately the surface of my paper isn't too flat, but I'll do my best. All I do is just use my pencil here and just kind of go around. I don't even have to hold this down. It just sticks on its own. Let's see, how big of a circle do I want? About this size? I think that should be good. Okay, so I think that's a pretty good sized circle. So I'm just going to be working with that, and then the good thing is this just lifts up. It's got a little sticky piece right here, and that's it. It's simple enough like that. So again, I'm going to have a link to the description, a link in the description to that item in case you want to check it out and just see if there's anything you're interested in there. So this right here, this circle, I was just thinking that to get it started, I want to use a marker. So I've actually been falling in love with this Sharpie. It's just a regular Sharpie. It's so strange. I've had lots and lots of different Sharpies, and yet this one has kind of grown to become one of my favorites recently. And it's this one that has the brush tip, and then it has a ultra fine tip on the other side, which I don't use as often. But for some reason that brush tip has really been doing it. So I'm just going to use this to get started to make my border, since obviously I had to start it off with pencil. And I don't have to do this. I think it just helps prime me mentally in a way. When I have a border, it's a way of telling myself that this is the limit. And I suppose that this is my math experience kind of coming into play, is I'm looking at the edge of a surface or the edge of a space, and I'm thinking, this is it. This edge is it. Nothing exists outside of that. And it kind of helps soothe me to think that I'm not filling the whole page. I'm just thinking of this as this is my little universe right now. Nothing else lives outside of this. So, since this is my little universe, I'm going to purely focus on that and nothing else. And I am going to come in just a little closer, just to make sure that everything is visible. So how about we come down like this? Okay, so just a little closer. And I was thinking that I wanted to use some of those dragon scales that we'd used recently. We used them last week. But what I want to do is, in order to create those scales, is I first want to create a little bit of a framework that we can use here. And so what I'm going to do is something that I've shown again in another thing, and this is going to help you create a sphere. So let's draw some guidelines. So what I'm going to do is I'm only going to draw a very light line down the middle here. I'm not going to use it, but it's really just to remind myself very lightly that this is the line that intersects the circle exactly down the center. And so then I'm just going to start creating these curves. They don't have to be perfect. They're just pencil marks that are here to help me create a sphere out of what was just a flat circle. And so I have this first curve, and I'll draw the second one, and then I'll tell you what my thinking is for drawing these guidelines. So when I create these first two, I want them to take up about a third of the space here. And it's not going to be perfect. I'm probably not making them exactly the same. It's okay. So this takes up about a third of the space in the circle. So I figure this is a third, this is a third, and this is a third. So that's my first separation that I've created. And then the simple thing from here on out is I'm going to draw another curve over here, which will bisect this area in half. So here I'm cutting it in half. Again, I'm just doing my best. And when the lines come over here to the top and bottom, they don't have to reach this point here. They can kind of merge into it a little bit on the side. It doesn't have to be exact. It's a matter of perspective, really. You're never going to see these 2 points exactly when we're talking about perspective, like with your eyes. So this line, cut this in half, so that's good. The next line, this one here, is going to cut it in half again. So here we go. I'm just doing that, just doing my best to bring the line over here. So there's that line. And if I want to be really, really tedious, I can draw another line. I can bisect this again, kind of near the edge. But you'll see that kind of as we get there, it's not quite as necessary. We're just going to kind of create the look. So there we go. So here's the first one, second, third, and fourth. So I've created 4 lines for myself. If you just want 3, that's fine. So I'm going to repeat that on the other side. I'm going to turn it around just because I find it that it's a little easier for me to work on that side when I create these curves. So here's the other side. Cut in half again. And then the last one, I'm going to cut it in half one more time. So you'll see, even if it doesn't look perfectly spherical, it definitely has more dimension now. So now it looks like when we draw on this, as long as we use these lines to guide our pattern, it's going to help it look dimensional. I'm just going to erase that line in the middle because I'm not using it. That was just there just to remind me where the middle was. So there we go. And let's see, so what I wanted to do is I was thinking of making those dragon scales. So I'll show you what the drawing was, and this was from last week. These were those dragon scales that we made. We were playing around with them, and probably easier to see them this way. And I just have a few pencil lines here. I wanted to see what it would look like if I had these lines in here. I think it's a pretty simple way to just add some detail. And so we're going to be making these here, and we'll see if we can make it look a little dimensional, almost like it's a sphere. I almost imagine being able to draw an egg, but that it also has dragon scales, so it's a scaled egg. That would be really interesting. So for now, though, I'm just going to practice on this sphere, and we're going to see what happens. So I think my tendency would be to start from the bottom because that's just how I work. For some reason, I always start there. But because they're dragon scales, I'm going to start from the top. I think I need to clip down my page because it's kind of going to be flapping all over the page. That's what happens when you reach the end of a book. And it's very thick and full of lots of glorious drawings. It's hard to keep some of the pages in place. So I will make sure I start at the top. And I will come in just a little closer yet again so that we can start making these. So these little scales, they're going to start off very, very tiny at the top here. And so because they start at kind of this very tiny little cramped space, they're not quite going to look too detailed, but I'm just going to make a few. So it's almost like a little petal. So just like that. And I'm just using these guidelines to create a petal in each space. So here, and it looks like I have a little bit here. It's very, very tight in there, so I'm just going to make like this long one. And then same thing here again, I'm going to create a couple more. There's one, there's another, and then this one's really long and tight. Looks like I can put one way over here. It's really hard to see it. For me, my idea is that for the most part, I just want to make sure I'm going straight across so that I don't lose the design. So how about we're going to keep going on top of that, but we're going to alternate. So this is going to be a little difficult because it's very tight right here. And so here's one, and I'll just try my best to get them to touch kind of from the tips. It's not going to look too great. Not at first, at least. It's just kind of a mess. And so I'm just kind of adding them in here. I realize that I need to try to angle them a little bit just to kind of follow the dimensions, to follow these lines here. And this one's in between here, and then one in between here. It gets hard on the edges. They're just like a bit of a mess. But, okay, so I added a few. That's good. So far they just look like flower petals. And we could just leave them like that too. I think I'm going to come in really quickly and just add that added detail, which is just to kind of recreate that shape inside. And even though it's really tight over here, I'm still going to add that line because it's part of the design. And it actually matters when the lines are very close together over there. Here they won't be too close together. See, it's just very wide and open. As we reach the edges, they get very close. Hopefully I don't lose my edges there, but I'm going to try to continue making these. So I'm going to make another row here. I think for me it might be easier if I just start here in the center and maybe work my way out to the right and then out to the left. Let's see if that helps. So you see this is a very big one. Let me just add this in here now. And I'll do my best to kind of carry through. So I know that I should have 1, 2, 3, 4 in here. So let's see if we can do that. And you'll notice that what I'm starting to change up now that I'm able to add detail is I'm leaving a gap. So there's just a slight gap right here on this peak. Not necessary, but it's just a little detail. There's 2, 3, and this last one's very, very skinny. 4. And one thing I do know is that these around this zone here will get very, very elongated. They'll get stretched out. Again, it has to do with visually or our perception of things. They're going to get very stretched out and they're going to look a little awkward. So they won't look too pretty, but it works. Let's work in the other direction here. So let's see. There should be 4. This is probably going to be a little wonky because I think I moved them here, but that's fine. I will accept the results. 1, 2. These are going to start looking very strange. 3, and I'll just add this one here as the 4th one. So they do look very odd, very long. I think that's okay. It's perfectly fine. We can also add some shading in later, which will help fix it. So like I said, it was going to look a little awkward sometimes, and we just want to keep going. Just follow the idea. So let's see what happens now. Hopefully I've fixed just a little bit of my wonkiness here, and we'll see if, fingers crossed, we can kind of get some nice shapes going here. So I'm going to put one here. That's a big one. You'll notice my center ones are always big. Here's another one that's big. Those are my large ones. Right at the center. Because that's the spot where when we look at it, it's closer to our eyes. So we see more detail there. So let's make these that are going to head out from there. Let's see. So I think my peaks will be touching the line now. Fingers crossed. So there's 1. I think there's only 3 right now. 2, 3, very elongated, and there's like a weird one here at the edge. I'll add that additional line really quickly. Doesn't look too pretty, but again, no worries. We're just playing around. And then I'll try to carry that over here. There should be 3.5. So here is 1 peak. This is another way to do it. Here's another peak. Notice as the ones that we have out here don't look too pretty, do they? They look almost like little daggers. They look like little weird shapes. It's actually what happens when shapes are kind of distorted by space. Instead of looking perfect like they do on the surface here, they start getting elongated, they start getting flattened and squashed. So let's do the next one here in the center. So again, I'm kind of not going by the line here, but that's okay. It's not a problem. There's my biggest one. Right there. Just getting bigger and bigger. And then we're going to do a line of them. There should be 4 of them now. And I'll show you the dots in case you're wondering. So I'm going to try to straighten it out. So here it is, straightened out. So that you see mentally where I'm going. So see this line right here? I'm going to follow it. So there will be, right here, will be a peak. There will be a little peak here, and here, and here. So I'm kind of following that line straight, almost straight across, or straight across if you want to. It can be close enough is good enough. So it's here. Here's the second, the third, and the fourth. And so I'll just add in these lines. A little messy, a little weird. It's okay. So there those are, and I'm going to do that on the other side now. So I'll show you those dots again. So I tend to do this more mentally than physically. I don't always put the dots down. 2 and 3 and 4. And because it's a little wonky up above, I might have to adjust, but let's see what happens. So here, I can make one here. This'll fit. No problem. We can adjust. So there's one. Let's see how the others will fit. There's the second one. Seems fine to me. Third. And then a fourth. I think that works just fine. It's messy, but it works. And it's just going to keep adding to it as we keep working. So let's add the next ones here in the center. So I'm going to try to make those peaks kind of land about here and here. So one thing I'm keeping in mind, now that I've reached the halfway point, I'm going to try to remember that this scale and these 2 that are about to happen here are basically my largest ones. I will not make scales bigger than those because it's the center closest to my eyes. This is where they are the biggest. So I will start shrinking my shapes now after this. Okay, so these are my biggest. Everything from here on out will start to shrink again. Okay, so there are those. Let's do the ones on the edge. So they should hit the line now. So they'll be about here, here, and here-ish. And so now I make them. Here they are. And there's kind of a half one here. It's easy enough to just draw a quick line right there. If you are in the mood, you can be more careful with yours. Make it nice and clean. Try to be a little more obvious and more methodical about your lines. As for me, though, I'm just kind of playing around and just seeing if I can make the effect. Just playing around. So I'm not being super, super careful about my lines right now. So right here. My dog is sleeping behind my chair and she's making funny little sounds again. I think sometimes she just wakes herself up. She's dreaming and then she just suddenly remembers that something's going on. And she wakes up looking a little bit confused. It's really cute. I think she's okay though. So you can see here I'm just carrying on with my little shapes here. I'm just layering them on. Just doing my best to continue. And hopefully you're noticing that these are getting smaller. They're not as big as the ones above. You're getting just if you have to, you can draw yourself some dots. Give yourself some dots to work with. And those might help you so that way you don't kind of move outside of the range too much. And for the most part, I just kind of move across, just straight across like that. for the most part. You can see it's starting to move a little, and I'm not going to worry about that. In the end, the result it'll kind of take care of itself. It will take care of itself. So here, just adding some. Looks like my peaks will be here now. So here, these here always get very long, and it feels almost uncomfortable to have to make them that long, but that is the way it works. These here in these kind of quadrants, top and bottom, they get very elongated. So I have 1, 2, it looks like I need to add a few here. And sometimes as I get to the bottom here, I almost lose track of my pattern, but that's okay. As everything converges here, it starts looking even muddier, even messier. So I'm usually not terribly concerned with how perfect this area is. It's all just going to come together. It's almost going to look like a pineapple, like just this pineapple bubble. So here we go. Gonna do the other side. It's also a little harder to track where the shapes are ending up, so just do your best to kind of do one row at a time. You'll see we don't have a lot of room here left. So I'm gonna do 2. So these are super tiny now, we're running out of space. The row here, here, and it's getting pretty messy. Here. Just the last few little lines. And honestly, at the end, I just kind of go with whatever floats my boat. And then the end is just a few lines. Just for good measure. So it's pretty messy down there. I try not to worry about making it super perfect. So here we have our result. So let's come up just a little bit again. Let's see here. Just so we can get a better view. So we have a pretty decent sphere here actually, and you saw the lines were messy, they didn't have to be perfect. So now we have this sort of pineapple-y looking thing, and what I'm going to do to play around with it is I'm going to remove the pencil now. My lines, my contour lines that helped me create a dimensional form. So now I have this scaly bubble, little scale bubble. And what I'm going to do, we have 2 choices. I could use an ink wash, but I think today I just want to use my pencil. I don't use it as often the last few weeks, and so I want to go back into, so I'm just going to come in along the edges. I'm not going to worry too much about where my light source is. I'm just playing around. So I'm just going to go around the entire diameter of this circle along the inside. I'm giving this shape form, taking away the flatness, adding shadow. See, I'm just going around. I haven't even blended yet, but I tend to lay down my pencil really well, and that way I get like a nicer shading. Just feels really nice to do this. I'm just gonna keep rotating. Okay, here it is. And I do that a lot. I rotate my drawings around a lot. Just round and round and round they go. I think I just really enjoy seeing it from every perspective, from each angle. Okay, so here we have all of our pencil. I'm just going to blend it with my finger. I think that's still my preferred method. I use blenders when I have to. I really, really prefer blending with my finger if I can. So here we go, just spreading it out. Perfect. So we made a sphere. It's pretty cool. So you see this didn't take too long. It wasn't like a long drawn out drawing, about 20-25 minutes, something like that. Just looks really interesting. If I ever have time, I might come back and do a little more outside, but in truth, I think this was what I wanted. My own tiny little universe, my own little world, my little bubble. Just something to kind of break me out of my thoughts for just a little while, just enough so I can relax and then figure out what I'm going to do today. And so I think this was a pretty good idea. I like it. I'm going to make a decision right now and just accept it the way that it is. Call it done. If I ever want to play with this again, I'll just make another one. So there you go. This is how we're doing a sphere, and it has gorgeous little scales, a little scale pattern. Even though the ink was messy, it still overall came out pretty cool. So I hope you give this a try. Let me know what you think of it. If you decide to tackle this, you can make a couple of these in a drawing and just have fun with it. Maybe even go in and color it. So thank you so much for joining me today. My name is Betsy, and I love drawing. I love drawing every day, so I'm glad that you're here with me. Thank you so much, and I hope you have a wonderful day.